Today, we're diving into a really radical idea, a new theory that flips our understanding of consciousness on its head. It asks a pretty wild question. What if consciousness isn't something that's just cooked up inside our brains? What if it's actually woven into the fabric of the universe itself? I mean, think about it for a second. How does that 3-pound lump of wet gray matter inside your skull generate, well, all of this? Your thoughts, your feelings, the color red, the memory of your first kiss. It's probably the single greatest mystery in all of science. And for forever, we've just assumed the answer has to be locked away somewhere inside those neurons. But what if that's the wrong place to look? What if the brain doesn't create consciousness from scratch? A new theory, called FIEL, suggests that maybe the brain is more like a radio receiver. It doesn't invent the music. It just tunes into a signal that's already out there, a fundamental property of reality, and amplifies it into the rich experience we call life. To really get this, we've got to touch on what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. And it's actually a simple question. Why do physical things, like neurons firing, feel like anything from the inside? Why isn't it all just dark? Why is there an experience attached to it at all? And this is where the field theory steps in. FIELD stands for Field Integrated Experience Loop, and it offers a pretty mind-bending answer. It says that consciousness isn't some weird, ghostly add-on to physics. Nope, it's what you inevitably get in a universe that has a perfect, unbreakable memory. A universe that never, ever deletes anything. Okay, so a universe that remembers? What does that even mean? Well, the field theory is built on two, let's say, unconventional ideas that ask us to rethink everything we thought we knew about reality, information, and even the number 0. First up is this idea of a cosmic heartbeat. The theory says there's a fundamental field, the phi field, that's pulsing at a speed that is just impossible to imagine. We're talking 10 to the 43 times every single second. And every single one of those ticks, every beat, creates the very pixels of space and time. It's the bass rhythm that keeps the entire show running. The second idea is maybe even weirder. Let's call it no zero math. You know how in school 5 plus -5 equals 0? Poof, gone. Well, in the math of this universe, they don't vanish. When two forces cancel out, they leave something behind. A little ghost, a record, an entry in a kind of cosmic ledger that says, hey, a value of 5 was canceled right here. Nothing is ever truly lost. It just leaves a trace. And this quote from the theory's author, Jonathan Duhon, just ties it all together so perfectly. Every interaction, every particle collision, every single one of those canceled out forces is a transaction that gets woven into this universal memory. And get this, the theory proposes that the act of being recorded is the most basic form of experience itself. Right, so the universe has a heartbeat, and it keeps a perfect record of everything. That is a massive idea. But how do we get from that faint cosmic hum to the incredibly rich and detailed movie playing in your head right now? Well, that's where our brains come into the picture. The field theory says the brain is not a generator, it's a phenomenal amplifier. Think of its billions of neurons all firing in these incredibly complex looping patterns. They're like a resonance chamber. They take those simple, fundamental ledger entries and organize them into these huge, structured, intense patterns. They're amplifying the basic background noise of existence into the symphony of your conscious mind. And what's so cool about this is how well it lines up with things we can actually see in neuroscience labs. We already know that when you're consciously aware of something, your brain shows these synchronized waves, especially around the 40 Hz gamma frequency. In the field model, that's not a coincidence. That synchrony is what allows billions of tiny separate events all over your brain to bind together into one big coherent entry in the cosmic ledger. That's what creates the feeling of a single unified moment of thought. So this brings us to the core mechanism, the loop. It's a constant conversation. Your brain's activity makes a little ripple in the universal field. The field instantly records that ripple as a ledger entry. But then, and this is the key, that brand new record immediately feeds back and influences the brain's own electrical field, which then shapes what the brain does in the very next instant. It's a self-sustaining feedback loop between your brain and the universe. That loop is your stream of consciousness. Okay, but wait a minute. If this whole record-keeping thing is a property of the universe itself, that leads to a really strange question. Does that mean a rock has some kind of feeling? Is your coffee table conscious? And the theory actually has a super clear answer to this. Just look at the comparison. Your brain has these incredibly complex, synchronized feedback loops, right? That's what allows it to create a rich, integrated experience. Now look at a rock. Sure, things are happening in there, atoms are vibrating, but those are just random, disconnected interactions. There are no feedback loops to tie them all together. And that's the big takeaway here. Consciousness isn't an on-off switch. It's a spectrum. The ledger entries for a rock are like a billion random single-letter scribbles on a page. There's no story, no integration, so its level of experience is practically zero. A brain's entries, on the other hand, are like a rich, interconnected novel. The complexity of the information loop determines the richness of the experience. This all leads us, maybe inevitably, to one of the biggest philosophical headaches of all time: free will. If our thoughts and actions are just part of this big physical loop with the universe, are we just puppets on a string? Or could this theory actually give us a new way to think about what it means to be in control? I mean, it really feels like we make choices, right? But physics tells us it's all just cause and effect, one domino knocking over the next. So how does a theory like phi try to square that circle? And the answer it comes up with is actually beautiful. It says your will isn't some magical force that breaks the laws of physics. Agency is just what we call it when a system's present actions are being influenced by its own recorded history. Your will is the causal power of your own unique past, all of it written into that cosmic ledger, shaping what you do right now. So you see, you're not breaking any laws of physics. You are a law of physics. You are a self-referential loop of causality influencing itself. When you make a free choice, it's the entire history of your personal loop, every memory, every experience, acting as a single cause to guide your action. It feels free because the cause is coming from inside you, not just from some external push. And that leaves us with this really poetic way of looking at everything. The FIEL theory suggests consciousness isn't some weird fluke that only happens in biology. It's the universe's own memory system. It's just the universe keeping score of its own incredible, intricate dance. Which means the question isn't, how does dead matter create a mind? The real question is, what kind of music is your consciousness adding to that cosmic score?